And this show is brought to you by the Beaches of South Walton. Find out more about this travel destination at www.beachesofsouthwalton.com.
Hi, we're here with Rob Deford at Boordy Vineyards in Hydes, Maryland. And Rob, why Maryland? Why can you grow grapes in Maryland?
Well, you know, when we started in the mid-'60s, I didn't know you couldn't. So it was a matter of youth and inexperience, and not many examples around you, and not much history to tell you that this wasn't possible. We just put grapes in the ground as if we had a family farm, and it seemed like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Speaking geographically, Maryland is located, we're standing at parallel 39. If you go west, you hit just north of Napa Valley. If you go east, you go just slightly north of Rome. So the angle of the sun is very favorable here. What we have is a continental climate, which I think there can be very little argument that it's warming up. When I grew up here in my teens and early 20s, it was common to see temperatures 15 below zero Fahrenheit. We haven't had temperatures significantly below zero now for 15 or 20 years. And grapes that we could not have contemplated growing in the past, we can grow now. For example, chardonnay, cabernet sauvignon, cabernet franc, petit verdot, pinot grigio, all grow well here. And we're standing, in fact, in a chardonnay vineyard that's been in the ground for, this is its 17th year. It's a very healthy producer. Produces, in fact, we'll taste the wines later, some lovely wines. Over the years, we've had to rip out acres and acres of grapes because they were the wrong grape in the wrong site, on the wrong rootstock, the wrong clone, and all of that now is kind of coming together to make it so the next vineyard we plant is more likely to be successful. Well, we're in the Piedmont of Maryland, which is rolling hills, ancient soils that have fairly complex horizons, a bit of clay, but where we're standing, there's also a degraded granite called schist here. And this is very good for root penetration. And this is why the vinifera that we plant are located on this hillside. Now, what you want is a good microclimate in this area, because there's no question that this is a difficult place to grow grapes. I won't kid you about that. But if you seek out the right microclimate, meaning a good hill with what we call good air drainage, a nice aspect, and the right soils, you can do it, and you can do it incredibly. And you see the little shiny mica in here? Can you see the little bits and pieces here that look like mica? That's the schist. That's the degraded schist. That's granite.
The history of viticulture in Maryland goes back to the 1600s, but much like the stories around Thomas Jefferson, viticulture failed here before it had to bring itself back again. And it seemed, I think, to the early settlers, a natural place to grow grapes. There are many wild vines in the area, a very friendly landscape, a temperate climate, so why not? Obviously, what they didn't know was that there was phylloxera here, and that some of the extremes of cold were unfriendly to some of the traditional European varieties.
We can't count on the weather from day to day here. While we can say on the average that we're at parallel, 39, and that we have this many degree days during the season, this much rainfall, we never know when it's going to come, what the fluctuations are going to be, because we have a continental climate essentially here as opposed to a maritime climate. We're constantly being challenged by rains, by high humidity, by peaks and valleys in the temperatures. Well, the lyre was all the rage back in 1990, and like everything else, viticulture is subject to fashions and passions, and its purpose was to increase vine density and yield with a nod to quality at the same time. But what we have found is that it tends to overproduce. And we have found a kind of a sweet spot where if we drop more clusters on the ground, we get better wine quality. But the lyre is a system, it's a bit of an animal, and you have to manage it for quality by cluster thinning more than you would under other circumstances.
We planted the vineyard that we walked in earlier today, the Chardonnay vineyard, on the lyre to make sparkling wine. Because at the time, in essentially 86 through 1990, when we were developing and planting that vineyard, my assumption was that we could not ripen Chardonnay adequately here to make a table wine, that we had to make a sparkling wine, which, as you know, is harvested about 17, 18 degrees sugar. It turns out, after we developed that vineyard and began taking the crop off of it, that it was a mistake to think it was a champagne vineyard. And so after 15 years of producing a sparkling wine, I quit doing that and went entirely to a table Chardonnay.
Now, if you look up the hill, we've gone to a higher density system. This was planted in 2004, the vines over there, and those are Chardonnay also. We've gone to a different clone, a smaller cluster clone. The vines are at 4 feet. We'll only put 1 to 1.5 clusters on average per shoot versus 2 to 2.5 on these. Again, history, we've changed that. By taking less from each vine, you're asking less of each vine in terms of the strain of producing a crop. You get a higher quality crop, but you still get decent yields. Now further up the hill, you'll see the grow tubes. That's Pinot Grigio that was planted in 2006, and that is also close spaced, even closer than this. As time has gone on, we've favored closer and closer spacing. We are only limited by the fact that it's a hillside, so we haven't gone to 7 feet between the rows, which is true close planting. That's still at about 8.5 to 9 feet up there, but very excited about the prospect for Pinot Grigio.
Again, I can't emphasize how much viticulture has changed over the years. We were in the vineyards earlier. You saw a very nice example of 3 of the evolutionary phases of viticulture, and I could show you a 4th one out here where our hybrid vineyards still are. Viticulture has changed tremendously, and the result is that people who want to stay current, who want to be making the best wine they can from their region, can have no choice but to take the very expensive step of ripping out old vineyards and putting in new ones according to the latest knowledge.
This kind of brings home the research station aspect of what we all do. You know, we are, absent a coherent program at any of the local universities like you have on the West Coast, we all are the research stations, and we have to share our information with each other, which we do readily. And we go through our associations, we talk about our experiences, and if I hear something I like, I will learn from that and do it here.
I think that we would be kidding ourselves to say that Maryland was anything but the minor leagues right now. But we are not a farm team for another region. We are essentially a region in rapid evolution, and that is very, very exciting. And I think the difference between us and other more established regions is that those of us who are here making wine right now are essentially writing the book on how it's going to be done in the future. It's not written yet, and that is a thrill to be part of that.